It was a floating palace, the largest moving object ever created by humanity. A technological marvel so advanced, so powerful, they called it unsinkable. So, how did this masterpiece of engineering end up on the bottom of the ocean on its very first trip? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. Let's dive into the 6 critical mistakes that doomed the Titanic.
You have to understand, this wasn't just some clever marketing slogan. People genuinely believed it. When the Titanic set sail, the world saw it as the absolute pinnacle of safety and modern design. And of course, it's that tragic irony, that deeply held belief in its own invincibility that makes the story so unbelievably haunting.
And here's what's just mind-boggling. After 3 years of construction, with 2,000 people working on it, this unsinkable giant vanished beneath the waves in less than 3 hours. Just gone. It was a catastrophic, almost unbelievably fast collapse.
Right, that's the big question that's fascinated us for over a century. And the answer isn't simple. It wasn't one single thing that went wrong. It was a perfect storm, a chain reaction of 6 distinct mistakes, from pure human error to fatal design flaws that sealed the ship's fate long before it ever saw New York.
So, to really get why this happened, you first have to appreciate the sheer confidence everyone had in this ship. I mean, this was not some project thrown together by amateurs. This was the work of the absolute best minds in the entire industry.
Just look at the stats. The builders, Harland and Wolff, they'd already built over 500 ships. The operators, White Star Line, a century of experience. And the captain, Edward Smith, the man had 40 years of experience at sea. Everything about this operation just screamed reliability. This was the A-team.
Okay, so with this bulletproof reputation, the Titanic sets sail on April 10, 1912. Imagine the crowds cheering, the excitement. But what no one on those docks knew was that a series of critical errors was already starting to stack up. The first couple of mistakes happened way before anyone even thought about ice.
So you've got 2 huge problems right out of the gate. First, the ship was going way too fast. And second, they were basically flying blind into a known danger zone. Let's break those down.
It really came down to pressure. The owners of the White Star Line wanted to make a splash, to set a new speed record for crossing the Atlantic. A big publicity win, right? So Captain Smith was under immense pressure to push the ship to its limits, even in waters that were known to be dangerous.
This is where the communication breakdown becomes so critical. On the night of the disaster, the ship's wireless operators got not 1, not 2, but 6 different warnings about a massive ice field directly in their path. But here's the thing. They were so busy sending personal telegrams for the rich first-class passengers that these life-or-death warnings never made it to the captain on the bridge.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. You've got a ship traveling at nearly top speed, in the dark, and its crew has no idea they are sailing straight into a minefield of icebergs. In the next few moments, 2 more flaws, one a ridiculously simple oversight and the other a deep structural problem, are about to make things a whole lot worse. And here's the fascinating question. Could the Titanic have actually survived hitting the iceberg? The shocking answer is maybe. A lot of experts think the initial impact didn't have to be a death sentence, but a terrible combination of missing equipment and cheap materials turned a bad situation into a fatal one.
And these next 2 are just unbelievable. First, the men in the crow's nest, the lookouts, whose entire job is to spot danger, had no binoculars. Can you believe that? And second, a cost-cutting measure deep inside the ship's hull was about to fail spectacularly.
Seriously, just think about that. It's a pitch-black, moonless night, you're in an area known for ice, and your lookouts are trying to spot danger with nothing but their own eyes. Because of this, that enormous, football field-sized iceberg wasn't seen until it was right on top of them. Way too late.
And here's the fatal engineering flaw. Now stick with me, because this is crucial. To cut costs, the builders used cheaper, weaker cast iron rivets in parts of the hull instead of stronger steel ones. When the ship scraped against the iceberg, these weak rivets just popped open like buttons on a shirt, and that allowed water to pour into 6 of the ship's watertight compartments. Way more than it was designed to handle.
So at this point, the ship's fate is sealed. It's going down. And this is where the story shifts from a technical disaster to an almost unthinkable human tragedy. The last 2 mistakes are the ones that turned a terrible accident into one of the deadliest disasters in modern history. And this part is just heartbreaking because so many of these deaths were preventable. A shocking lack of basic safety equipment, combined with a totally chaotic evacuation, literally created a death trap for more than 1,500 people.
So here's the thing. The Titanic was actually designed to carry 32 lifeboats. The cranes and the space were all there. And that would have been enough to save every single person on board.
But, and you're not going to believe the reason why, the owners decided to only install 20 lifeboats. Why? Because they thought having all 32 would make the decks look too cluttered for the first-class passengers. That decision meant that, best case scenario, there was only room for about half the people on the ship.
But it gets even worse. During the chaos of the sinking, even that limited space was wasted. The crew had no training for this. The first lifeboat, which could hold 65 people, was launched with only 28 inside. And while the policy was women and children first, it became painfully clear that first-class passengers were given priority, leaving hundreds in third class to fend for themselves.
So when you look at the whole story, it's just this perfect storm of failure. A terrible cascade where every single mistake made the next one worse, all leading to this inevitable, tragic ending. In its final horrifying moments, the lights on the great ship flickered and died, plunging everyone into total darkness. At 2:20 in the morning, the Titanic snapped in two and slid into the Atlantic, leaving over 1,500 souls in the freezing -2-degree water, where survival was measured in minutes.
So let's recap the fatal chain of events. They were rushing. They ignored warnings. They didn't have the right equipment. They used shoddy materials. They didn't have enough lifeboats, and they had no idea how to evacuate the ship. Any one of those mistakes might have been survivable, but all of them together, it was a death sentence.
And that really brings us to the final, crucial point. The Titanic wasn't just sunk by an iceberg. It was sunk by hubris, by this absolute, unwavering belief that what they had created was so perfect, so advanced, that it was immune to failure. And that right there is a chilling lesson that's just as relevant today as it was on that cold April night over 100 years ago.